Thank you, Raluca, for the introduction. Breaks happen, not sometimes, but often. Target, Lincoln, Equifax, they all are victims. So when attacks happen, people crucially rely on system logs for forensics analysis. Indeed, a recent survey by VMware Carbon Black indicates that logs are viewed as the most valuable artifact during incident investigations. So it's not surprising that the industry of log management software has become a billion-dollar business. Still, logs are only valuable as long as they say the truth. Unfortunately, attackers have long recognized the importance of logs. Indeed, logs will be the very first target of an experienced attacker. To ensure log integrity, a natural solution is to sign them with a message authentication code or map. However, during an intrusion, the adversary may be able to obtain the signing key and thus can forge file attacks. To deal with this, a classic work by Blary and Yi suggests that we evolve the key after some certain iteration. For example, here, you can obtain the key K2 by hashing the first key K1. If the adversary later obtains K2, it still knows nothing about K1, and we can protect the integrity of M1 and M2. There have been a number of follow-ups to improve the functionality of this basic blueprint. The security of these schemes are generally not questioned. The consensus is that they work. Surprisingly, a recent attack by Paccagnella et al. Broke all schemes in Linux. How? Now, in Linux, the Linux audit system produces logs in the kernel space. Logs are then sent to the user space for the storage. So all current systems are built in the user space, signing logs before the storage processing. Unfortunately, there's a delay between the time a log is created and the time when it's committed. And this gap is big enough for the attacker to intercept and modify a log before it's signed. To counter their own attack, Paccagnella et al. Built a new logging scheme that they call KennyLoggings. This scheme works in the kernel space, signing a log immediately when it's produced. Additionally, KennyLoggings would update the key right after its use, meaning that a key now signs only a single message. Moving to the kernel space demands stringent performance because it affects the running time of all applications. As the result, KennyLogging has to go back to the basic blueprint of Blary and Yi. In this work, we build a new logging system, QuickLog2. It improves KennyLoggings in both efficiency and security. For example, on signing, QuickLog2 is about twice faster than KennyLoggings. And the speed gap is much wider for verification. So here, QuickLog2 is about 6 to 10 times faster than KennyLoggings. Why such a big gap? Well, because in practice, we have just a single message to sign at a time, but lots of data to verify. Our design exploits this abundance to wrap up the amortized speed of verification. In contrast, KennyLoggings verification is even slower than its own signing. Our improvement comes not just in time, also in space, cutting the storage cost. So KennyLoggings uses an individual tag per log, and its estimated storage overhead is about 5.1%. In contrast, QuickLog2 uses an aggregate tag for all logs, and it practically has no storage overhead. Our efficiency comes in tandem with improved security. Because KennyLoggings uses a tag for lock, it is vulnerable to what is known as the truncation attack, where an adversary deletes a couple of recent locks to delay the detection of its intrusion. In contrast, QuickLock 2 uses an aggregate tag for all locks, and it can resist the truncation attack. In addition, QuickLock 2 has a much smaller secret, meaning that it's easier to protect against side channel attacks. In particular, KennyLoggings needs to occupy 3.2 megabytes in kernel memory, but QuickLock 2 only needs 48 bytes. Now, to obtain such improvements, we had to overcome several obstacles in the design. Naturally, we want to use a mark to sign lock messages, but there's quite a big gap between what standard mark construction can provide and what locking applications desire. Standard mark constructions are optimized for long messages, but locks are short. In our benchmarks, the typical lock size is from 64 bytes to 384 bytes. Moreover, standard mark constructions often have a somewhat costly setup. This is negligible in typical situations because you can cheaply amortize it when you sign many messages per key. But here, we have just a single message for a key. So our problem boils down to quick authentication of short data. And the standard quick fix for this problem is to use zip hash, a dedicated PIF for short messages. It's exactly the route that KennyLoggings takes. It's reasonable, but is there a better way? In our solution, we use AES as a building block, but the key idea is to separate the authentication key and the AES key. The authentication key is still random and secret as usual, but the AES key is constant and public. The trick of using a fixed key AES is widely used in MPC to improve the speed of Gabble circuits, and here it turns out to be useful for locking too. So here's an illustration of our construction. And let me stress that it's just a one-time mark, meaning that you can only sign one message per key. And that's all we need for locking applications. Aiming for this weaker target substantially simplifies the design. Now, let me show you how to aggregate mark tags. An obvious benefit of tag aggregation is to reduce the storage cost and to resist the truncation attack. But here, it also improves the signing cost significantly because appending a tag to a log message turns out to be unexpectedly expensive. So the aggregation method is simple. Just XOR the individual tags. So this idea comes from a lovely paper by Kars and Lindo, but the justification for our use here goes beyond the abstraction there. Strangely, this trick has never been used in the locking literature. Why? Because in prior systems, they sign many messages per key. The security of the XOR trick will break down completely in such a case, because it allows an adversary to reorder locks under the same key. But here it works because we only sign one message per key. And experiments confirm that our design does lead to performance gain. So recall that QuickLock 2 is about twice faster than KennyLoggings on signing. And this translates to a similar gap when we consider overheads on lock-intensive applications. Even better, the gap is quite bigger in busy multi-threading environments. This happens because KennyLoggings has another thread for key precomputation. This additional cost is well hidden in typical applications, but it will show up in, say, the standard NAS benchmark for high-performance computing. So have you seen the design of QuickLock 2 and its statistics for performance gain? In the next few days, when you go back to your company or your university, please have a look at your IT department. It's likely that the logging system there is problematic. Or maybe your IT guys already use KennyLoggings. But in any case, please tell them to upgrade to QuickLock 2. It's faster, it's safer, and it's free.